Good evening, everybody. This is Rob with another edition of Horror Pop After Midnight. And my guest tonight, he's a filmmaker and a writer, Ash Hamilton. How's it going, Ash?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me on.
Yeah, the last time I saw you was at Days of the Dead in Indianapolis.
Yes, yeah. Which was a great time. We had so much fun there. Like I love the convention scene when I'm doing stuff there, and I love it when I'm not doing stuff there as well, when I can sort of enjoy it in a different way. But yeah, the indie scene there is a lot of fun. A lot of fun.
Yeah, they have one hell of an independent horror film festival as well.
Yeah, they definitely do. Truly, yeah.
All right, let's talk about your independent horror anthology film, F, Tales from the End of Times. How'd you become part of this project with the other film directors?
So I was coming off of a feature film that I wrote and directed called Holes in the Sky, and we had done the festival circuit for a little over a year with that, and then we had found representation and distribution, and of course, you know, the work doesn't end there. Like, there was a lot of promotion for the film, and then just trying to keep it, you know, relevant and doing a lot of marketing for it. And it was a lot of work, like especially a lot of work when it's a small cast and a lot of the cast is really sort of green, so you don't really know, you know, the angles that we want to promote, the angles that we want to market. So a lot of that sort of fell on me, and I knew that I wanted to do something, like I wanted to keep making films, but the idea of going back and doing something that was self-financed, something that was going to take probably another year, and all of this was like really daunting for me. So I thought, you know, I've got an idea for the short film, and I was talking to one of the other writers, and I said, you know, I like this idea, and I would love to see different interpretations of it. So the conversation then sort of morphed into, well, what if everyone wrote a story, directed a story, you know, find a few other directors, where you all take something from this day, this day where the world ends, and it's from all these different perspectives. So it's an anthology, but it's an anthology that has an intertwining theme, so it's not so disparate. You know, a lot of anthologies are just genre related, and they cross over multiple storylines and sort of multiple universes and stuff. And we wanted to take that and focus it more on one day in the same universe, but keep it, you know, kind of loose. So, you know, we got a hold of some people who, you know, we felt were very, very creative people that we knew, who were also directing, who had done both shorts and features. And we came to them with the idea, and we said, hey, you know, it's pretty much carte blanche, like, do whatever you want. There's just a very, very loose, you know, connective tissue that we need to make sure is there so that this all makes sense. And luckily, they all said, yeah, we'd love to do it, which obviously takes a lot of that pressure off of us when people are excited about being involved in the project. And then over the course of the next few months, everyone was sort of writing and doing their own thing, and that gave us the opportunity to try to, of course, you know, raise funds as being a very independent production. That's always that's the bane of our existence as indie filmmakers, is just trying to actually find money to do these things. As much as we'd like to do it for nothing, we got to do it for a little something. So, you know, that was sort of the process that we were doing, was that all of us could do this independent. And if we all were able to come together in a relatively short period of time, then, you know, we could work on post-production and see where we were with that anyways.
Yeah, I really enjoyed the film because it was about a prepper and vlogger. You also had a tortured love story.
Yeah.
You had a young girl trapped in her grandma's house, a crazy grandma, you know, and then you had a messed up cult leader in his cult during the end of the world, beginning the apocalypse, and not spoiling it for anybody, but I loved the starting of the film. You guys went right into it, and it got like brutal, man, just brutal.
We figured if you're doing stories about the end of the world, there's not going to be a lot of happy endings. Like if there's expectations of happy endings, people are going to be pretty disappointed for the most part. It's not about trying to stop the end of the world; it's about being in the middle of the world while it's ending. And that's something that we really wanted to do. Was we wanted to say, hey, we want to prepare people for the rest of the film, that we start off quick and we try to keep that pace throughout the rest of it. I'm really glad you enjoyed the opening, because that was something that we really, really focused on, is that we really wanted to come, sort of out of the gate, and we wanted to come in swinging and let people know that, maybe this was going to be something a little bit more than they expected.
I think so too. And I love your story, how it all combines through all the stories in the film during the apocalypse, how it's like all in one day. And I love how your story intertwines, between it. Your story was about a news reporter from Action 10 News with her camera guy, going around trying to find this great story, and she gets tired of doing these fluff stories and all that. And how'd you get Kayla Kelly to be part of this, and Rodney B. Snyder? I mean, they had that great chemistry on the screen. They kind of remind me of like a brother and sister, trying to find that right story.
Yeah, that was actually sort of the perfect storm. We had a lot of people initially that we had eyed for Kayla, and we had some fantastic people audition. Like, that's the weird thing about that process, is that it's never as if you're getting, bad actors. You're getting this stable of fantastic people, and it's not as if any of them are doing anything wrong. I think people who maybe don't do film don't understand that during the process, you're getting fantastic performances, and sometimes it's fantastic performances across the board, but it's just not 100% what you're looking for. You're looking for something, and sometimes that's really hard to communicate. So what you're looking for, and once you see it, you just know. Once you see it, you're like, that's who it is. Let's really, really hope that they've got time to do this. Let's get a hold of them. Let's see what their day rate is. And we had ran through a lot of people that we really liked, and there were some fairly like up and coming names and some bigger names in there that we really, really liked. And then Kayla came in, and the thing about Kayla was that she had to be bitchy and likable, and that's a weird sort of that's like a razor's edge you have to walk. Like, she had to play a bitchy person that you knew had a heart, and she was able to do that very, very easily, and that was exactly sort of the performance we were looking for. And Rodney was very, very difficult to cast. He had to come in as, first of all, very likable, and he had to be instantly sort of an everyman and likable. He couldn't be an action star, even though that piece of the film is very action oriented. Like, he couldn't be this, and I hate to say, but like he couldn't be overly masculine, even though he's a masculine person, but he couldn't be this very hyper athletic, action star kind of person. Like, you needed to be able to look at him and go, oh, that's me, or that's my friend, or that's someone that's that's in our circle of friends. And we had a lot of people from all sort of walks of movie making that auditioned for Rodney, and man, we were sweating it. Like, we've never been that close to almost totally rewriting a character to fit an actor, because like we had one other person that we liked, but they weren't really the Rodney character we had in mind, but we liked their performance, and we thought, well, if we rewrite some of this, and we nudge and sort of massage some of the lines a little bit, we'll be able to make him into Rodney. And then one of my friends who was local asked us like how casting was going, and we were pretty honest. We're like, oh man, we're having a rough time. We're trying to find our other lead, and we are having great difficulty. And he said, there's a guy that's only about an hour and a half away from you. He's pretty local. He was in one of my productions. Just let me talk to him and see if he wants to, submit an audition tape to him. and he sent us a video like later on that night. And as soon as we saw it, it was just, again, it's that perfect storm. We saw it. We're like, that's exactly what we need opposite Kayla. This is exactly what we need for that role of Rodney. And when they first got on set, everyone remarked like, well, how long have they known each other? Because they'd never met. But as soon as they got on set, they had this little shorthand and these, in jokes. And it was sort of meant to be with the two of them when you saw them together, because it really was this compatibility, as much off screen as it was on screen. So we were very, very lucky to have both of them, and have both of them sort of, come together at that last moment in our darkest hour to be able to pull through for us.
Yeah, it was pretty cool. They played off pretty good. They were trying to find that story, and they were talking about everyday life, and all around them there was craziness, murdering, blood everywhere, and they weren't even paying attention.
And like, you got it. That's a beat you have to hit, because it has to be fairly comedic when it plays. And if it falls flat, you're like, oh no, like people don't get that you've got this woman who's struggling so hard to find the bigger picture, and it's happening all around her. But of course, they're sort of too self-involved to understand what's happening. They have to get really into the thick of it to understand it. But yeah, that was one thing we really wanted to portray, was a person that was looking for something so hard that they weren't finding it when it was right in front of them.
Yeah, let's talk towards the very end, during the dark hour with Kayla and Rodney, where they finally went to the cult's compound. And I love all the camera angles and shots. I love how used the cinematography. It felt like you were with them looking through the camera. You see like an axe and a gun in front. It kind of reminded me of playing a live action Doom game.
We wanted that. Like, we really, really wanted that. The first film feature that I made was a mockumentary, which had that blend of a cinema style approach for the documentary style segments, and then had more of a handheld, found footage or POV approach for some of the other stuff that we were doing for it. So we knew that there was a blend there. I watched a lot of documentaries on the number of cameras that there are in Great Britain right now. And I always thought, like, there's a million movies that you can tell if you only had access to all the cameras overseas. Like, there's so many of them. And, they go from block to block. Like, they're catching all of these people, committing crime so easily, because they know exactly if they're turning left, they're turning right, they know what street it is, they know what car they're getting into. And I thought, wow, if we could do that, like if we got as many cameras as possible. So when they turn, all of a sudden it's a security camera, and now they've got their phone on, or it's somebody else's phone. And then Rodney's always got his camera, which is more of our cinematic angle on things. So that was important to us, especially because I wanted people to feel like they were in the apocalypse. I wanted it to look like you've got a journalist that's right there at ground zero when things are happening. And even when you get some really, really big films, sometimes it still feels like you're a little bit removed. You're always looking through the eyes of a character, looking through a camera, and there's these dimensions of sort of being removed from it. And we wanted to, I guess, collapse all that and see how close we could get to making it look like you were there when an axe was being swung. You were there when someone was, like, I don't want to give it away, but there's a lot of stuff that happens in the last 10 minutes where you're always, a foot away from something horrible, like just absolutely horrible happening.
Yeah, I loved the end. I'm not going to spoil anywhere. It got plenty of bloody and brutal with a lot of action. It kept me on the edge of my seat. I mean, it was just perfect. And towards the end, where you see what really happens at the apocalypse, where you zoomed in with that camera for that perfect pan shot, that was phenomenal. I loved it. I loved the music in the film. Who did all the visual effects? The visual effects were great. And who also did all the blood and makeup?
So the blood and makeup was a couple of people, one of which was a guy, Phil Urey, out of Indianapolis. He's someone that I've known off and on in the industry since I've been like about 10 years old. Like I've known him all my life. And he was a mask maker. He was a special effects guy. And we had always talked about, even when I was very small, that someday I'm going to have him on, a big film and we have a lot of practical effects. And he was able to come into it. So Phil Yeary, Tamara Pritchett, who was a local effects artist. And we had a couple of people, Wayne Tuttle and a few that were local effects artists that had come in to help because we had so much going on. We had to sort of have Phil play a department head so that we could have him dictate what was happening here, what was happening there, what was being painted, what was being fabricated, when we needed blood, how we were doing that. And, we had to do a lot of stuff that we didn't know how to do initially, so there was a learning curve we had to flatten. There's one point where something very nasty happens and something gets killed and it sort of barfs / explodes directly into the camera. So we had to create this rig that was all of these sheets of plastic, and we had an actual, it was a bubble rig for cameras that are used underwater. So we had to sort of retrofit it to work with our cinema camera. And then we had to have this huge, enormous shield all over it to make sure it was like nothing got the lenses. There was such a volume of the stuff that comes out that we're like, we can't get the lenses, we can't get all the electronics. So we had to have these huge, sheets. So, that was sort of everyone coming together. And then we had a lot of post-production digital effects that we tried really hard to blend in. So for me, it was always, can we do the practical effect and then can we augment it? I wanted something real there, but how do we augment it? And then the digital effects sadly came down to me because that's what you have to do when you direct the small films. You have to wear a lot of hats. So when you see a digital effect in there, I did all of the post-production digital effects. But there were many people that did the practical effects for it.
I think it was pretty good. And who did the music? I love the music because it was real moody, and it felt right in. It was like a moody, apocalyptic type of style of music where it really made you feel that the world was really coming to an end with that type of style of music.
We had some really great people that we approached. There's a band that I've loved for years that was an industrial band in the late 80s, early 90s called Cop Shoot Cop. They've been on multiple soundtracks. This guy, Todd A., is sort of a driving creative force behind that. And then he eventually formed this like super punk folk band called Firewater, which I immediately gravitated towards. It's weird. It's like it's world funk. Like he spent a lot of time in Afghanistan, spent a lot of time overseas, sort of adopted some of that sound. And I really wanted that song for the opening credits. There's this song from Firewater, and I was pretty sure we weren't going to get it because music is extremely expensive. Unless you know someone and they just give you a song, which is very rare. Like music is extremely expensive, and I'm like, well, the band's fairly well known. They're like 10 albums in. I don't think we're going to get it. And lo and behold, I emailed the guy out of the blue, and I just said, I think your song is perfect for this. I've edited it into the beginning. Can you please just watch it and then tell me how much it's going to cost to get it? And he came back, and he was like, hey, gentleman's handshake. When you start making money, send some my way, but other than that, it's yours. And I'm like, you got to be kidding me. That was just such a fantastic thing for this guy to do because he doesn't know me from Adam, We had a local band called Annihilate that was able to give us another song. And a couple of them, we just searched for artists online who were, trying to put songs on YouTube and trying that. And they were sort of these royalty, non-copyrighted songs that they were sort of giving out. And we were able to get a couple of those that I think sounded perfect for the film. So it's a mix of actually getting it from the artists who are well-known artists, and then finding people who were very, very generous to give us music. But we really like the music. We really think the music works really well for the film.
I did too. I loved the bands who played the song, especially Firewater's song, because I was going to get ready to ask you that. I love that song. And at the end of the film, What band sang that one song? That one song was a catchy tune at the end of the movie.
Oh, that was Annihilate. Yeah.
Yeah, Annihilate, man. I gotta definitely look those guys. Those guys. That was a rocking song. Because after the movie was over, I was jamming to Annihilate's song, man. It was cool.
Oh, they're great. Yeah, they're Jeff Williams actually lives. He's the basically a big part. He and his brother of Annihilate, and helped us out. Just as a big fan of the arts, he's a big fan of cinema. And, I'm like, hey, I really want to put one of your songs in here. And I wanted at a pivotal moment, I wanted it like when all hell's breaking loose. So, again, just a very, very generous people. It's the kindness of others and sometimes even the kindness of strangers when you make a small movie that come together and really help you out when there are instances of not having $10,000 to pay for music. Because it's an expensive venture.
And also, the film is doing great during the film festival circuit too. Tell me a little bit about that. How is it's getting really popular around the film festivals?
Yeah, we've only had the film finished for maybe a little over a month, and I knew that I wanted to start putting it in festivals. I think sometimes, when it's hard to remain unbiased. It's hard to remain objective when you make something, especially when you spend a lot of time on it. We did spend a lot of time on it. But you sort of step back sometimes and you look and you think to yourself, like, wow, I think this is competitive. Like, I think this is, for what we spent on it, which was not a lot. I think that we might be able to go up against some bigger films. And, that leads you into going, okay, let's sort of test the metal of the product. And then you put it in film festivals. And we've been very lucky that, we've now, I think, been an official selection at, I think, maybe 12 to 13. And just out of that small group, I think we just got our 15th award. So we've done a lot in a little amount of time. So we've been very, very, very thankful and very grateful that people are looking at this and they're having fun with it, and I think that that's sort of the message that we're trying to give is, this is for us a return to watch something and you might have the thrills and chills of, traditional horror, but in the end, I think it's a lot of fun. And I think it's a film that gets your adrenaline up, and I think people are sort of responding to it that way.
I think so too. And this type of film's perfect to show because it seems like there's more and more people making, apocalyptic films. You got the latest movie with Arcadian with Nicolas Cage, and then also you got Civil War with Kirsten Dunst going out there. It seems like those type of movies are coming out of the woodwork and getting into popularity.
Yeah, I think that that's probably a product of a lot of podcasting right now is sort of talking about the future of the planet. I think that politically and socially, people are asking themselves what the future of, if not America, what the future of the planet is. Things seem pretty divided right now. I think it's easy to get online and find things to be pretty bleak. So I think that it's sort of an organic process for people to start asking those questions. Like, where are we? Are we close to some of these extinction level events? Are we close to something that's socio-political that's going to happen, that's going to sort of tear the nation of the planet apart? And we just sort of took that and said, let's just go as crazy as possible and pack as much blood and special effects as we possibly can in there.
That's funny. Now let's talk about one more question for you. You, Kayla, and Rodney, say you guys were at the end of the world. Out of three of you, who would survive and who would be the smart one of the bunch?
Oh, Kayla's infinitely smarter than I am, undoubtedly. Like every moment that people are on set with Kayla, they're like, "No, Kayla's smart. She's got natural leadership abilities." I think that Rodney would find himself. Like, I can see that. I can see, like, in a moment of desperation, I can see this this lion coming out of Rodney, performing an act of heroism. And I think I would be way too sure of myself, and I would make a mistake early on and get killed. Undoubtedly, I would not last long at all. I think I knew all the answers, and I'd come out, and I would just get flattened.
You're like this. It's the end of the world. Here I go. I'm done.
Oh yeah, I'm like, I've got this covered. Follow me, guys. And I walk out of the door and I'm dead. It's like that.
Yeah.
That's what would happen.
You walk at the door dead. Rodney would go, damn. And Kayla's like, he should have followed my directions. He would never did. He should have like ducked and kept quiet.
Oh, she would lead the resistance. Kayla would end up becoming the Sarah Connors of the group. She would end up leading the resistance, and then sending Rodney back. But I think that would be a funny movie itself. Send Rodney back to the wrong time.
Especially if they're characters. Have you ever thought about maybe doing a spin-off short about them, like a prequel, how they got together before this all started?
Well, they mentioned this. We had this backstory of a very important shoot that went horribly wrong because Kayla just couldn't keep her mouth shut, and it's this bank robbery. So we allude to a bank robbery where she did not do what she should have done. She didn't really align herself with the interests of the network, and things went afoul. So I think if we ever did anything with those characters that happens before this event, we could do something involving that bank robbery. I think that would be perfect.
I would definitely see that. That would be pretty fun. You've done some great films. I mean, you've done this film, and then your one film, about aliens and abductions. Boy, you're more into the horror and sci-fi part of it. Are we going to see more of you making more films like apocalyptic, alien, all that great stuff?
I don't see myself veering far from horror. I mean, it's something that I love. Every time I think of a story that I want to tell, it's still in that genre. So I don't really see myself veering from it. After doing something like F, because it was a huge undertaking. Like the stuff that we did for the budget that we had was, we definitely bit off more than we could chew. We just managed to swallow it by the time that we got done. But I want to do something that's a little smaller next time around, a little more intimate, with maybe a cast of just like one or two people, something that's extremely small, but something that relies more on just heavy tone, heavy atmosphere. But this one would be a monster movie. So I definitely want to do something that's a monster movie. I love monster movies. I love the idea of creature-driven films and the special effects behind it. So I think the next thing that we're looking at is doing something that's a very small film, but very, very, very big on the scares, and very much a creature-driven feature.
That's pretty good. So thank you for coming on out of your busy schedule. Where can everybody find you on social media, and also check out your latest anthology independent horror film?
So we're pretty easy to find. People can find me as Ash Hamilton on a lot of social media. I also have a entertainment site that people can go to, which is horror-fix.com. We do reviews and news, and we often promote not only other projects but our own project through there. Michael Joy from Horror Newsnet is one of our producers. So we run a lot of stuff through Horror Newsnet as well. Horror Fix on Twitter, Horror Fix on Instagram. So we're pretty easy to find by either my name or the brand and the production studio we go under, which is Horror Fix.
That's pretty good. Thank you so much for coming on, and thank you for letting me check out the screener. Thank you so much.
I'm so glad you enjoyed it, and thank you so much. It was a pleasure talking to you.
And everybody have a great evening.